Hello, and welcome to Week 4, Unit 4 of Application Development for SAP Business by Design. In this unit, we'll be looking at file inputs. Now, there's many ways we can get data into a system, whether it's through manual user input or through a web service, and another way we have is a file input. A file input is essentially an XML interface that we can upload data to depending on whatever the XML payload is. We can provide it for our business objects, and be able to easily load data for one object in. It's not uncommon to use an XML input for a mass data load of a custom object if you don't have some kind of integration through a web service, for example. Or some systems, if you have an integration, it's very easy to just get an XML dump of data from somewhere else and then have it periodically send updates. And so file inputs can be a really helpful tool for us in the SAP Cloud Application Studio. So as I said, it's just an XML interface that's there to be able to integrate our data. You'll see that there's ways that we can schedule the processing of the data that's brought in. There's ways that we can have it automatically receive data through a WebDAV directory. And so we can look at all this once we actually get into the actual system. So let's jump into the studio and go ahead and create one. Now I'm logged into the SAP Cloud Application Studio with my development user here, and I'm going to go ahead and again right-click on my business object, as I very commonly do, and say create service integration. Most things I need to create off my object I can always do by right-clicking on it, and this time I'm going to say XML file input. And let's go ahead and say next. And you can see it's going to ask for some information. So what's the name of the interface? I'm going to go ahead and say bonus plan file input, just so I know. What's the object itself? You can see there's plenty of standard objects as well. For us, we're happy with just our custom object. And what's the particular node? So let's go in here. Now I can select any of the data I want to bring in. Now I'm going to take a few of these out because I don't really need them. So for example, the bonus, revenue, any of the things that either is automatically created by the system, like the UUID, or the association, or that we'll calculate later on. I need to say what is the readable ID. So it needs to know what's the unique ID, and it needs to know that because as we load data, it's either going to try and create it, or if it already finds it, it'll go ahead and update it with the data that's coming in. I have the ability to say mass processing. So for example, if I want to process more than one instance at a time, I can allow, this interface will allow us to do that. And this is very different from the web services that we have, because the web services don't allow mass processing that we create. We can only send one instance at a time. So the XML file input is nice in the sense that it allows us to do more than one instance at a time. Then I have to give it a way to be able to identify it either by looking for that unique key or some type of query, right? So not only does it know the key, but do we want it to, how do we let it identify which actual object with that key? And then I can go ahead and say finish. And that's really it for the interface itself. So this wizard is really nice and it makes it very easy to generate this interface for us. I'm going to go ahead and activate it. And a nice thing about XML file inputs is that once this is active, I have the schema file and the interface is there, and then I'm ready to start pushing data into the system. It's a little bit more low key as opposed to web services where we don't have to have communication arrangements or scenarios. Now obviously for most of your integration scenarios you'll probably more likely use a web service. An XML file input isn't meant to replace that in any means. It's just a different tool to be able to allow you to publish data into your system from some type of external source. So we can actually take this schema file now and we can use it wherever we need to, whether we have some type of tool that will generate XML for us or you manually create the XML yourself. It's up to you, but there's lots of tools out there, XML tools. One very easily accessible common one that most people have is some type of spreadsheet program. So a usual spreadsheet program can also take your spreadsheet and export it to XML. And an example here I'll show you is Excel. So many people have Microsoft Excel. They have easy access to it, and I can go ahead and download the schema file here, and we'll just save it onto my desktop. And then I can go into an Excel, and if you don't have it, there's a tab here called Developer. You can easily enable it. And Developer allows us to take in XML schema documents and then generate XML based off of those. So I'm going to go ahead and say source and bring this in real quick. Let's go ahead and add that file to my desktop. And here's my bonus plan file input XSD. Now I'm going to give it a few things. I have this automatic field creation date time. The framework requires that we have this field in, that we actually have it in our payload. I'm going to leave it empty for now though, and not worry about filling it out. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom to this list. Now if we set it to be mass enabled, so there's a list here. If it wasn't, this would just say bonus plan like it is here, and then we would be able to process only one instance at a time. Since we said list, we can do a few things. So let's go ahead and bring in the bonus plan ID field, and let's say the description. We'll move that down to the proper row. So I can have as many fields as I want. I can have as many rows as I want. So let's say 001, 2, do 1003 and 1004. And we'll go ahead and just pull that up a little bit. And then I can say test 1, test 2, test 3, and test 4, just for the easy testing purposes of this. So I can basically just keep populating this. And I could even take this file with no data and give it to somebody and say, go ahead and populate this. Once you're done, either send me back the XML file or just send me the document, the XML document, or the Excel file document itself, and then I'll handle the rest. And so I have now a populated document. I have some data in here, right? Now let's go ahead and export this. And I'm going to export it to my desktop so I can easily get to it. And load. Now let's look at this. If we go into the system, so here's our bonus plans. We only have two right now. We have the plan 1 Kate that I initially created, and then here's the integration one from consuming an external web service. Now let's go ahead and go to, let's log out and log in with the administration user so we can go to the Application and User Management Work Center. In this Work Center, there's a view called File Input. And the File Input will basically allow us to process these XML payloads. So it's standard functionality that's there. It's already available for different objects. Basically in the studio, we're just kind of reusing this a little bit to be able to provide XML interfaces. So you can see here File Input. Let's go ahead and go in there. And I can see whatever the current runs are. So runs are the actual scheduling and processing of files. I'm going to open this up and go to unprocessed files. Now you can see here, I can go ahead and say add. It's going to ask me what interface do I want to add this for. I want to add this for my bonus plan one. And let's go ahead and find my file. Here's my load XML file. And then you notice down here there's also some WebDAV directories. So each tenant will have its own WebDAV directory, which is basically a protocol for file transfer over the net. So if you have an external system that you want to be able to automatically send some XML files to this tenant, you could actually transfer them through WebDAV to this specific directory. And that way it's you can have it automated, or sometimes someone just gets a dump once a week, and then you can set up a folder on your desktop that's a WebDAV folder that anything you put into that folder is automatically sent to the destination that's there. Now we've manually uploaded this one. We can see it's available now. Let's go ahead and create a run that will actually process these files. So for my run, I just need to give it some ID. We'll say bonus plans here, and then I need to say what's the actual interface, which is our bonus plan one. Let's go ahead and save that, and we'll activate it. And now the run is created, but let's go ahead and schedule this. We need to schedule the run. Ooh, not that one. Sorry. Let's go back. Let's refresh this, and we'll schedule the bonus plan one. We can schedule it to run any other times, either right away, immediately as we click, whether it should run after some other job happens, or if it should be scheduled for a one-time run or even recurring. So I can have it go weekly, monthly, something like that. We're going to just say immediately for now. I'm going to say save and close. And so now this should automatically start processing my XML file payload. So if I come in here, I can see what the current runs are. You see there's one in process. Let's keep refreshing it, and it should be finished soon. Now, if there was a problem, this would show up as red, and I could go in and take a look. And if I have some kind of issue in my XML payload, it'll try and tell me what the error is behind that. But if the payload is technically correct, but I still have a problem, let's say, with my data, or I missed a certain field, there are cases where it'll look like it comes out okay, but no data is processed. If that happens, try it again. Maybe try just a subset of the data, and usually you can find it out fairly easily. Now let's look at the application log here. It should show us some info about the specific run and what happened. So here I can see that the run did occur, that it processed the document okay, what were the results. So no problems, no errors, no warnings. It all came out okay. Now let's go ahead and see if, I believe this user should have bonus plan. It does. Great. Let's take a look and make sure that they actually created. And they did. Perfect. So now we're able to create 4 other bonus plans based on the file input. So you can see it's a really easy interface to set up and be able to provide data to a system through XML payloads. And there may be scenarios where you need to do that, where you need to be able to just take XML data and publish it into your tenant to be able to do some type of integration. So we were able to create our interface for our object. That wizard made it very easy for us to do that, and we could download the schema file and use it immediately. And then with that schema file, we can populate whatever data we need to and go ahead and upload it using that file input work center. So that is it for this unit and this week. Next week, we are going to go into some other advanced topics, and we'll start out with analytics, actually in embedded components. So with that, thank you very much, and have a good day.